just kind of tell us a little bit about the situation and what's going on with the whole House Bill 1947 and what you've been dealing with.
Right. You know, it's been a long journey, this House bill. This type of legislation has been embattled here in the General Assembly for over 12 years, that it has no movement whatsoever. And this was the first year that we were able to get something passed out, and you know, House Bill 1947 passed overwhelmingly from the House of Representatives, 180 to 15. And I think, you know, most of the members of the House, you know, knew and understood the issue. And the problem we were dealing with here is that after the Altoona Johnstown report came out and we saw how horrific and egregious the sexual abuse crimes were in there, and that the Catholic Church institution basically managed these pedophile priests. I mean, it's not like it was compulsive where, oh my God, we have a guy here, let's quick move him. I mean, they actively managed them from parish to parish. They knew where they all were. You know, and with that push, that helped us get it out of the House, and then it went to the Senate. And, you know, since then it's been stuck in the Senate Judiciary Committee. Since it's arrived, we already heard that, you know, Senator Greenleaf was against the retroactive part of the legislation, and he, you know, expressed that the two other parts, eliminating the criminal statute and moving civil 30 to 50 prospectively, was a good policy idea. We were a little disheartened by that because, I mean, you're making that statement and you haven't even, you know, wanted to sit down and hear both sides of the story yet. But he did call a hearing on the constitutionality, which is somewhat funny, as being in my second year. I'm a 3.5-year member here now, and we don't usually have hearings on constitutionality. We pass unconstitutional bills all the time here, but all of a sudden when they have a sexual abuse bill here that could impact the Roman Catholic Church, all of a sudden we're having a constitutionality hearing. To me, right off the bat, as not only a legislator, as a victim, but as a resident of this Commonwealth, I mean, that stinks to the high heavens that we're already being set up for failure. And then we have the hearing, and the people who actually were at that hearing and who testified, every one of the testifiers that testified that it was unconstitutional was part of some type of Roman Catholic college, or was paid for by the Roman Catholic Church, the Catholic Conference, and the Insurance Federation. We were allowed to have our one testifier there. Our second testifier, Kermit Roosevelt, who's the great-grandson of Teddy Roosevelt, said it was constitutional, but he couldn't be here. He's a constitutional law expert at the University of Penn, very knowledgeable teacher on constitutional law. We also wanted to have somebody else present, Lawrence Lewis from Delaware, who was an expert in this in Delaware. He was Solicitor General when this all happened. Would have been a great opinion to bring to the legislators in the Senate. They refused him. You know, I do believe that it was one-sided. They stacked the deck to make sure that their colleagues believed that it was unconstitutional. And I know that not one of those senators up there know whether it's unconstitutional or constitutional. And from sitting there and watching them and ask their questions and meeting with them, they have no idea. Some of them didn't even know about the Altoona Johnstown report. That's crazy for me. As a legislator, how do you not know when your Attorney General puts out a grand jury report? That's so egregious. So no doubt the hearing was one-sided, and from that moment on, you know, I was upset. I mean, because...
Understandably, yeah.
Right? This is our only chance, and I look at it sometimes more through victims' eyes because it is personal, and this could be our only shot of getting this done. And here is a chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee who has had, you know, some interest in other dioceses in Delaware of making money from the Roman Catholic Church, saying it's unconstitutional. Now you're saying that it's unconstitutional in Pennsylvania. I don't think that's fair. I believe that it is up to the Pennsylvania Supreme Court to make that decision. So now what we're hearing is they're drafting amendments, you know, to either put some type of concealment or fraud in there. Again, even if they would put concealment in the bill, worries me, because even cases that we have currently tried to run under concealment have still been barred by a statute of limitations. So if they remove the retroactivity part, I still believe it's going to be very hard for us to go back on any type of concealment charge. I think there again, they feel like they have to do something. They're not going to do what they should do. They're going to do what they just have to do to make it look like they did something to their people back home, and their constituents should hold them accountable for that. Our main thing is, from that moment on, because to me it doesn't even matter what happens at committee anymore, because they're going to do whatever they want. They're going to strip my amendment, make it basically, I don't want to say a worthless bill, but the reason we are here is because of what happened in the 4 grand juries across the Roman Catholic dioceses in this state. We know what's happening in Harrisburg. We know what's happening in Allentown. We know what's happening in Erie and Pittsburgh. So, my thing is there's going to be more grand juries that are still going to be coming out. And guess what? It's not going to be over. But if they pass that one portion of the law, it could be very hard for us to go back retroactively, because we won't have anything to attach it to ever again. And they'll make sure of that. And again, from a victim, it's very disheartening, because for some of us who know that, my third childhood friend just killed himself on not this last Good Friday, but the last Good Friday. So I know that there's many of my childhood friends and other people out there that are suffering that are going to still go down this road, because they want to be able to have their voices heard in the court of law. That's all we want. And now we're having one chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee holding it up. It's not his right to weigh this on constitutionality. It's up to the Pennsylvania Supreme Court to make that decision. But again, to get it back to my where I was going, no matter what happens at a committee, we need a champion. And this is a message that you can take to all the senators out there. One senator, I believe, that could be our champion could be Senator Scott Wagner. I did meet with a bunch of them, and I believe that he gets it. He understands what the victims have gone through. He understands the magnitude and the collusion of the cover-up, and how the insurance companies actually play the role in the cover-up for the diocese. I know that victims, I know the papers, I know people across the state are waiting for a senator to come out and fight for us. And I believe whoever that ends up being, whether it's Scott or Teplitz or somebody, whoever's going to be that person, should be put on that platform for doing what's right and putting the rights of victims over the rights of special interest groups, lobbyists, especially organizations that pay no taxes, and then they're politicking from the pulpit. I mean, there comes a very fine line where you cross your tax exemption status. And I believe that they're very close bordering that right now, where maybe that's something we need to take a look at too, and start looking at some of these organizations where maybe abuse kids, you lose your tax exempt status, or you want to politic from the pulpit, you lose your tax exempt status. But that's where we are right now, where this fight is, hopefully, the Judiciary Committee can do some things that are right. If they don't, we're going to look to fix it when it comes to the Senate floor. We do have one action that would be the best case scenario, and that is whoever is our champion and stands up and fights, if that person would revert back to the prior printer's number, which would mean the exact bill when it left the House, and they would pass it from the Senate floor, it goes right to the governor. That's what we need.
Yeah.
And that's what we need that champion to do. And I'm hoping in my heart that Senator Scott Wagner and a couple of other senators stand up, and those guys with the loud mouths, with the ones that aren't afraid of long entrenched politicians, who just seem they never can do the right thing. They don't have the backbone. They don't have the guts. But the glory is going to go to the champion.
Do you think it's going to be a long time before, or how long do you think it's going to be until we see the next step?
I'm hoping that it could happen between now and Monday.
Oh wow!
Absolutely. I believe the committee they're going to have to call it up. They can't avoid this. So I would believe by Monday they would actually call hearing. The party, you're going to see a lot of I know I cuss a lot, but a lot of bullshit amendments that are going to try to damage the bill. that we need to make sure they get voted down. And if they go in, really, again, it does. You know what? Do what you have to do. Just save yourselves, people. And then when it comes to the floor, hopefully that our man or woman stands up and fights and tries to revert back.
Yeah. So the biggest people against it are obviously seem to be the Catholic Church people, and is just their reasoning because it could like hurt reputation and it was so long ago. Is that their reasoning? And
Well, we hear a couple things from them. The one thing is they always try to say, well, it happened so long ago, right? And that they all say, oh, well, in 2002 when we did the Dallas charter where the Catholic Conference of Bishops met, we said from this moment on, we're going to do it right. Okay, that was in 2002. We know they didn't do it right. We know that Father Mauricio was finally removed in 2014 in Altoona, where he was making trips from Altoona to South America raping boys. They knew about it in 2009. The Attorney General at the time, the Altoona Diocese at the time, never removed him. That was Tom Corbett at the time. And they let him to make more trips to South America raping kids. I hear stories like that across the diocese. No, they haven't been doing it right. And they also will say, well, we forget. It's so old, we forget. Well, my abuse and rape happened in 1984. There's not a day that goes by that I don't forget. And I think I equate some of that to where after it happened that last day, and I, went home, and I can remember laying in bed and thinking, what could I have done to not have this end the way it did today? And I tried to replay back over and over and over and over. What could I have done to make it different? And I would relive that every single night when I go to bed, where, I put my head down on the pillow and I think about what could I have done to protect myself. And then I fall asleep. And then I have, from the moment I was from 13 on, I would have just horrible nightmares every single night where I would wake up in the morning feeling like I did get sleep. That I tell people my dreams were, running away all the time. Somebody was chasing me, and it was always dark, or I was stuck behind a wall and I had guns and people were coming after me and I was trying to shoot these people and trying to kill them. The sexual perversion dreams of I think not understanding what the hell was going on for that whole time period. I was sexually abused, and then having those dreams in my head going, oh my God, like messed up, and when I wake up in the morning, how would I feel? Like I would feel like no sleep. I would feel worn out. I feel like I couldn't go on, and that period lasted a long time. And I still revert back to those times. They say like, oh, well, your pain or your mental or physical pain should go away. It never goes away, So for us, forgetting is just another, bullshit antic that they try to put out to try to say stuff like that about victims. And that's not true. Every victim I spoke to, they know. They can remember almost some of the most horrific details, smells and little things, and then they do say that we're targeting them. Well, okay, if we're not targeting them, anybody from the Boy Scouts, Penn State, they can come forward. You can go after public school teachers, public school coaches, anybody who basically abused you, and any other private institution out there. It just so happens there's only one institution that's here spending $2 million trying to defeat the bill, and that happens to be the Roman Catholic Church, the Catholic Conference of Pennsylvania. There's nobody else here besides their insurance carrier. So you have one institution and you have one insurance carrier. They're the only ones fighting it, and they should. And the reason they should is because of the horrific crimes they committed. They covered up. They colluded. They knew what was going on. Nobody's picking on them. But if you're in the business of raping kids, guess what? You're going to be held accountable, especially when you knew about it. And what people also don't understand is the statute of limitations in and of itself. Like they think the statutes right now, because civilly it's 30 and criminally it's 50. And a lot of people, they say, well, you had plenty of time to come forward. Well, my statutes in 1984, I only had 2 years civilly to come forward and 5 years.
Yeah.
come on, that isn't fair. You know, especially when he was at 12 different parishes raping kids. You know, accusations back to the 50s. How was I supposed to know that as a 13-year-old? They didn't even disclose that to my parents. That, hey, we're bringing this priest to our parish, and just give you a heads up. He's raped a lot of kids and abused a lot of kids, and gives a lot of kids alcohol. All around his time. Just want to let you know that. We never got that warning.
Yeah.
So, that's on them. And any other organization out there who abuse kids. I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're my brother, my cousin, my uncle. You're going down.